You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. I'm Evan Janssen. The show is live every morning and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live right now on YouTube with our whole show available on our YouTube channel all of the time. President Jacob Zuma delivered his second State of the Nation address in Parliament in Cape Town last night. A deal looks set to be in place by the end of this week in South Africa's 5-month-old strike in the platinum sector. And then 2 HIV-positive foreign prisoners have challenged the Botswana government's decision to deny ARV treatment to foreign prisoners in that country. First though, Katrine Milan gives us a news update.
Good morning, I'm Katrine Milan, and let's take a look at the news-making headlines this morning. There's been mixed reaction to President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address delivered last night in Parliament. Zuma announced ambitious plans to take control of the turmoil in the mining sector and to ease the country's energy supply. The president has vowed to follow up on the implementation of his program of action. Unveiling the government's plan for the next 5 years, Zuma said it will be focused on making the economy grow. There's still hope for an end to the platinum strike after Union AMCU submitted a written response to the latest offer from mining firms Implats and Plats and Lonmin. The companies won't divulge the contents of the AMCU's response, saying they're still studying it. Although the response has not been made public, it is widely believed AMCU wants the companies to agree to a moratorium on retrenchments before they sign any deal. Power outages have got Johannesburg residents fuming. Soweto residents went on a rampage yesterday after being without electricity for days. A protest of at least 100 people began on Monday when residents blockaded roads in the area with rocks and burning tyres. But Eskom maintains it's not load shedding, despite several other suburbs and businesses being plunged into darkness. Teams led by KwaZulu-Natal MECs for local government and agriculture have provided aid to victims in fire-ravaged areas near Kokstad. At least 10 people have died in wildfires which swept through the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. Large numbers of livestock have perished and large tracts of grazing land destroyed. At least 200 families have been left homeless. And then World Cup favourites Brazil were held to a goalless draw by Mexico. In an absorbing Group A match, Brazil failed time and again to break down a stubborn Mexican defence. Both teams now need points from their final group games on Monday when Brazil face Cameroon and Mexico meet Croatia if they want to make the second round of the tournament. Then in the other game last night, Belgium secured a 2-1 comeback victory over Algeria. The only African team to win in their first World Cup match in Brazil is Côte d'Ivoire. Remember, all these headline stories are available on our Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom.
Thank you very much, Katrine. President Jacob Zuma last night delivered a State of the Nation address touching on a number of issues ranging from the economy, intervention in the platinum strike, conditions in the mines, industrialization and nuclear energy, among others. Opposition parties say President's State of the Nation address failed to meet their expectations, mainly on the economy and intervention in the mining industry. Government has also set service delivery at local government level as one of its priorities. Now, in the Johannesburg studio this morning to analyse the State of the Nation address, we are joined by political analyst Dr. Rendani Moses Ralinala. Very good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Broad strokes, just give us your views on the President's address last night.
Look, I think the presidential State of the Nation was quite good to listen to. But of course, in terms of the challenges of South Africa in general, the problem lies on the implementation of all the promises that get made. You will remember that some of the issues that he has mentioned there are not actually new. They were contained in his February State of the Nation. And they are also part of their development strategy, which is your government strategy that they are implementing. But now the challenge that you see there is that if you look at local government, for example, the president talked about the need to improve local government. But the problem is that he did not touch management, poor management in local government, because basically that's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
So now, if you want to challenge to deal with the challenges within local government in South Africa, you have to make sure that you change management. There's clear change management there, and you put people who are right, who are correct, who have got the right skills and the right drive to ensure that they take it to another level. Then now you take, for example, electricity. He mentioned a lot of measures that he's going to take in terms of improving the power of this country. He mentioned coal-free, shale gas, and so on and so on. But what he did not address is whether South Africa has got enough money to be able to deliver all those projects. Yeah. As it stands right now, South Africa is spending more than the actual budget for Medupi power station, is spending more than the actual budget for Kusile power station. Now, the issue is whether South Africa will have enough financial capacity to be able to deliver all those things that he has mentioned. You ask me, I will say I doubt. The other issue, of course, that worries quite extensively that he mentioned was the relationship between the mine owners and their workers, and the role that government wants to start to play there. Yeah. If you then look at that specific issue, you will find that the president and his government have been trying for quite some time now to get AMCU to accede to some form of settlement with the employers. But the problem there is the relationship between the employers and the employees is so bad to the extent that if you don't deal with that, that's where you also need a change management process right there, so that the way the relationships, the forces themselves, they play themselves out there. It is critical that they begin to respect each other, they take each other as partners because they need each other. But I think the president, yes, he has pulled in Nedlec. He said he's going to have a meeting. Cyril Ramaphosa, the deputy president, is going to convene a Nedlec meeting wherein parties will sit and deal with those issues. But as for whether that will achieve the desired results, it's a different ball game altogether. Because also here you have got shop stewards and union officials that are not really well trained to the extent of managing negotiations and vis-a-vis the country's priorities and the needs and its own image in the whole world. So it is an area that, of course, even employers themselves probably, one should say, they left it too late because they should have trained those shop stewards. It is their responsibility, by the way, to ensure that the shop stewards that are operating in their mines are well trained. They can be able to differentiate between bargainable issues and non-bargainable issues, and the proper strategies to apply pressure where necessary and when to withdraw.
How do you read it after last night? Do you think that government wants to bargain with the business sector and other interests to chart a new path for the economy, or is there belief within the ruling party that that the government can chart a new path for the economy on its own?
Look, I think government understands that very well, that it cannot chart the new path for the economic development for this country on its own. Because for that matter, government does not even have capacity to run the economy. You can see its state-owned enterprises, most of them are collapsing. They are not doing very well in terms of their figures. Now, clearly it doesn't have that capacity. Capacity lies with the private sector. Now, you need some form of coordination and cooperation between government and the private sector in order to drive the economy. Because it does not really matter. If government wants to accelerate the economic growth by 5% over a period of 5 years, and the private sector decides to go and invest in other countries which are more stable in terms of labor force, you are not going to achieve the 5% growth anyway, because the gist of economic growth will lies with the private sector. For that matter, the infrastructure program that he's talking about has to be delivered by private sector. So it is very key that the two parties have to come together and have a common understanding and goal and assist each other going forward.
Fana, I want to ask you the road ahead. Do you see the project rollout as the key, or do we need more policy changes going forward?
Look, I think you need both. There are areas in which, of course, there should be policy changes. I can say this, for example, with all honesty. If you look at the labor laws of this country, for example, they are quite stringent in terms of the management of the employees.
Yeah.
They're quite stringent. And in that regard, it becomes very, very difficult because even when you go for a bargaining meeting as an employer and employees always know that they have got a red card on you and they can deal with you at any given point in time, and there's nothing you are going to do because the only thing you can do is to lock out or dismiss.
Yeah.
But whether you don't, it does not allow you to come up with other measures to pressurize the employees to go back to work. That is the other policy change. Of course, I'm aware that there are new labor legislations that are trying to deal with that. But the dispensation is not going to be that much different because it still extends a lot of benefits to the workers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think that type of policy change you need. But now, at the same time, you also need the implementation of these projects because it is the projects that generate jobs. It is the projects that increase the gross domestic product. And of course, it makes the economy feasible because you will have a proper infrastructure network.
Thank you very much for joining us. Insightful this morning, Dr. Rendani Moses Ralinala, who's a political analyst. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Now, State of the Nation activities will end on the golf course this week at the annual Presidential Golf Challenge, hosted by the Ministry for Public Service and Administration in partnership with the State Information Technology Agency. The event will afford the President an opportunity to emphasize the role of business, economic development and growth, using education as a tool for sustainable development and economic growth. We are joined by the Deputy Minister for the Public Service and Administration, Ayanda Dlodlo, in Cape Town. Very good morning, ma'am. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much and good morning to you.
Before we get into the pleasantries of the golf day and logistics, we have a lot of speculation about the health of the President this morning on Twitter. Our viewers are sending in questions. Can you give us an update? Is the President okay and in good health at the moment?
He looked sprightly to me yesterday. He was in top form. I don't know what would have happened between the last time that we saw him last night and this morning. But for all I care, he looked much better than he did a few weeks ago. So I'm quite confident that the President is quite fine.
Yeah, ma'am, there's just a lot of speculation on social media about the President having been off with exhaustion for a week or so. But let's move on to the golf day. You say that, this week the State of the Nation activities will end on the golf course. Just tell us more about the background of the day and the intention.
It dates back to 2001, having been started by President Mbeki and Minister Geraldine Muleketi. And it really was about having fun on the day after the State of the Nation address, but also raising funds that will go towards a charitable cause of whichever sitting president's prerogative was. So in this particular case, we hold it for President Jacob Zuma every year after the State of the Nation. You will remember that this year we've had 2 State of the Nation addresses. So in the last one, we did raise funding for his Jacob Zuma Education Trust, which has been in existence for many years when he was still the MEC for economic development in KZN. So we have decided this time around that it's going to be about really entertaining golfers who have been funding us before, but also creating an opportunity for government and business to interact and network. So it's not fundraising this time around.
I understand the event will afford a number of opportunities for interaction. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, we have, as you would know, men and women network on the whatever you call it, on the fairways, because I don't play golf. They network there. After the event, they would sit, still chat. There'll be opportunities for exchanging pleasantries, opportunities for talking about business ventures, opportunities for talking about a lot of things. So it's a networking session, really, which culminates into what would normally be the fundraising session in aid of what the President would then put towards his education trust, which to date has put 4,015 children through tertiary education in the sciences, including medicine, and some at technical level in institutions of technology. At the end of it all, we then have a dinner where the President and some of the students then bear testimony to how this process has helped them in their lives. Sometimes you find parents wanting to bear testimony as to how it is that this has helped the families. So it's really a networking session, but also showcasing what it is that can be done by our president, what it is that can be done by the public and private sector to ensure that those that are the most needy get access to education, as was the case with our president, who we all know never had the opportunity to go to school, and he did want to go to school. He wants to afford that opportunity to every child that is unable to do that.
Ma'am, can you give us an idea of, who are some of the players that will be taking part in the event, and also logistic? Where does it take place, and where will the events then lead up to?
It's here in Cape Town at the Atlantic Golf Course. In the evening, we'll have a dinner at the ICC in Cape Town. And it's your normal sponsors. You will have Metropolitan, you will have MTN, you will have your big companies coming in, but you'll also have people that will come in and who have always donated the very little that they had. So they also become part of the players. So it's really a range of people from year to year that come in and want to participate.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. That is the Deputy Minister for the Public Service and Administration here in South Africa, Ayanda Dlodlo, telling us about the Presidential Golf Day that will end off all the State of the Nation activities a little bit later this week. We hope that the weather stays very good in Cape Town for the next couple of days, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
It should. Thank you.
Okay, let's now take a look at what's happening on the front pages around the world. Papers around the world can't help reporting on World Cup host Brazil's disappointing night against Mexico last night in Nigeria. In the latest, a suspected act of terrorism, at least 7 people are dead after a suicide bomber triggered an explosion while football fans were watching the World Cup match between Brazil and Mexico last night. Seems we're not the only country with energy problems. The City AM reporting on fears of a spike in energy prices. Time to reflect. During the period of transition and negotiation in South Africa, the core area of the conflict in the late 1980s was in KwaZulu-Natal, where battles between the Inkatha Freedom Party and the African National Congress raged. In 1990, the number of deaths outside Natal and KwaZulu rose from 124 to 1,888. Violence escalated into the early 1990s. One such violent incident was the Boipatong massacre that took place exactly 22 years ago this week.
Massacres and anti-government feeling rose to new heights. Mandela responded by announcing the end of all talks with the government.
I can no longer explain to our people why we continue to talk to a government, to a regime which is murdering our people.
We're remembering the Boipatong massacre happened this week 22 years ago, at a time that the answers for South Africa were not so simple. Let's now take a look at what you are talking about on social media. Of course, we are at SABC Newsroom on Twitter. That's where you can interact with us. Map says, Sona, each minister will sign a performance agreement with the president to ensure delivery. That's certainly something worth shouting about, says. Gareth Morgan says, good to hear we will have more medical students, but let's keep the qualified doctors in SA by providing good conditions of service, says Gareth after the Sona address. Is the president well, says Le Justo. Well, I asked the question and the deputy minister says the president is well. There are a lot of people worried about the health of President Zuma. Some say that he didn't look his sprightly self last night, but word is that he's in fine health. Lucanio says, I couldn't ignore the fact that Zuma appeared thin and frail. I really do pray for a speedy recovery. He's human after all. These are some of the concerns of our viewers. And Nkateko says, I agree with the cleaning campaign. Let's clean all the dirt, not just the streets. Sona. Those are some of your views. At SABC Newsroom, of course, is where you can send it to us. Now, before we go to a break, what would a State of the Nation address be without the glitz and glam of the red carpet? Here are some of the pictures from last night. There we have DA's Musi Mamani and his beautiful wife a little bit earlier, Chief Mandla Mandela and his wife There were some Kwaito stars, the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Bheki Cele, Jackson Mthembu, and of course DA leader Helen Zille was also there. These are some of the high fashion on the red carpet at the State of the Nation address in Cape Town last night. We're going to take a short commercial break. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News.
Why are protests violent? And why does it seem that the police are incapable of dealing with violent crowds?
The government of the day is failing the people and it's leading to a lot of frustration. A person becomes a councillor or a minister within a week, within 2 months, is riding a beautiful car. So all this is actually frustrating the people and giving the wrong
You don't
message.
expect a councillor to ride a horse.
Not a horse, but maybe a Toyota Corolla.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Who are we, you ask? This is who we are.
We are technologically driven.
We are unashamedly Afrocentric.
We advise you not only on legal matters,
but on health issues as well.
We bring imagination to life.
We celebrate arts and culture and lifestyle.
We tackle life challenges head on.
We dig deep. We probe. We question.
We invite you to take a view from our house, as we tell it without fear, separating fiction from factual.
We are the SABC News Channel.
All news, all global, all the time.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom. Of course, one of the main bugbears for the country's economy is the now 5-month-old strike in the country's mining sector. Much was expected from negotiations yesterday, but we report today that the strike is not over yet. Labour Union AMCU and